So transactional analysis sounds a lot more complicated than what it actually is. It's just the communication exchanges between people. Transactional analysis is a method used to analyze these processes of communications. And what it requires is us to be aware of how we feel, think, and behave during any interactions with anyone. So transactional analysis, what we're going to talk about is something called the parent-adult-child model, the drama triangle, and the empowerment triangle. I am hoping that these models that we're going to discuss will better help any family members or loved ones to see any unhealthy communication styles that are happening and to change them for the better. So the first one we're going to discuss is parent-adult-child model. So you get these refers to different ego states. And an ego state is simply a pattern of feelings, experiences, and behaviors. We move between these ego states when we are relating to others. So none of it is set. The first ego state I'd like to talk about is the parent ego state. These are normally behaviors, thoughts, and feelings that are copied from parents and or any parental figures. And you get two types of the parent ego state. It is also, I just want to note, it's possible to be both either of these parental ego states. It's not normally just set to one. So the first one is the critical parent. Normally disapproving, harsh, quite aggressive in the way that they communicate, likely to rather just give instruction than look to understand, not looking to help the other person learn, but rather to take ownership of the situation. And they usually use judgmental language. Then on the other side, and they both are quite extremes of each other, nurturing parent. The nurturing parent tries to rescue, tries to soothe others, caring and concerned, overbearing, focuses more on understanding and empathy to break down the barriers toward a solution. And nurturing, yes, it does sound better, but they both are unhealthy because they both are extremes of one another. Next slide. Then we get the child ego state. So what happens is when someone, let's say, communicates from a parent ego state, the other person might take on a child ego state. The child ego state is when one interacts and responds to someone based on a past conditioning of internal emotions felt in childhood. So just like the parent ego state, we also get two different forms of the child ego state. We get the adapted child. The adapted child conforms and acts in accordance to others' wishes in order to please them and be seen as good and liked. Rebellious side when faced with perceived conflict and causes responses of resistance, hostility, and emotional reactivity, and normally is very insecure, feels very unsure of themselves. Then we get the free child. The free child is creative, spontaneous, playful, and pleasure-seeking, can be quite vulnerable, but at the same time is very self-centered and doesn't consider the consequences of feelings or any actions. Okay, and then if we go to the next slide, this will show how to break out of having that parent-child communication, because it's not healthy. In order to get out of it, one needs to communicate from an adult ego state. And an adult ego state is when someone interacts with others and its environment in the here and now, not from what they learned as a child or learned from any parental figures in their life, but from the here and now. They communicate in a way that is open, more rational. So takes in the emotional side and the rational side and kind of brings them together. They're less quick to make harsh judgments on a situational person. Figures things out logically, doesn't just, like mentioned, has that emotional reactivity, is able to take responsibility for thoughts, feelings, and actions. Adult ego states are able to solve problems and able to make decisions for themselves. When communication takes place from this adult state, we're more likely to be respectful, make compromises, listen fully to others, and have more healthy social interactions. So that kind of is one form of transactional analysis, one of the models that we'll be discussing this evening. So the next one that we're going to go to, which is the one I kind of want to focus on more, is called the drama triangle, because we're going to see about the drama triangle, and then we're going to talk about something called the empowerment triangle, which is how one gets out of the drama triangle. So as you can see on the screen, the drama triangle consists of a rescuer, a victim, and a persecutor. Any of these behaviors cause drama in relationships. And what I think I'd like to urge anyone here to do is, when we're going through the different behaviors, the different positions that one can take in the drama triangle, try and identify the one that you resonate most with. And it might not be pretty to resonate with it, because none of them are healthy. But if you can resonate and acknowledge and have that awareness, then there is power to change it. So we're going to go into a bit more detail of all three of them now. And like I said, I just urge you to reflect and see where you might fall into the drama triangle. Okay, so we have the rescuer. Rescuer, society perceives this person as generous and helpful and giving, but they actually devalue others in their ability to think for themselves and act responsibly, because they do things for others. They save people from certain situations. Doesn't give the other person any chance to think for themselves, any chance to come up with a solution for themselves. They so connected in a relationship, they give more than they take, which actually can tend to leading them to feel quite resentful. They come from the caring parent position that we've just discussed, from the parent ego state, and it puts them in a supposedly beneficial position. They worry about others and they help without being asked for help. But you see, they do things they don't really want to do, which we tend to call people pleasing.
I think that's important.
So it's saying yes instead of saying no. We're saying yes when you want to say no. And I think this statement sums it up. I'm okay when I can help others. So it is actually from a selfish perspective being a rescuer, because it makes you feel better. It makes one feel good about doing all these things for others, when in fact it's actually quite dishonest. Next slide, please, Kate. We get the persecutor, which I guess it sounds quite self-explanatory, but I'm going to go into it. The persecutor is often perceived as rigid, self-assured, or strict. They invite others to take on a defensive role because they can be quite aggressive. So as soon as they into any form of communication or interaction with another person, that person goes onto the defense, because that's kind of what the persecutor, the energy they give off. They think in black and white categories. With regards to the ego states, they are super critical parents. They often devalue others. Their behavior justifies them feeling smarter, stronger, and superior, which goes straight into the next one, which is grandiosity. So there's big arrogance there. When they bring other people down, they feel better about themselves. So just like the rescuer, there's a selfish component to it. Accuse others, and this statement, I'm all right, the others aren't okay. I'm never wrong. They're wrong. Whatever it may be. And common phrases a persecutor uses to justify their acts. If only you would have done what I told you. I did not expect this from you. I should have known better. I should never have trusted you. None of which are taking responsibility for anything that they could have done. It's all about the other person. So the persecutor, like I mentioned, is harsh. They we'll see how they link now. So we're going to go on to the next slide. And now we're going to speak about the victim. So victims present themselves to society as weak, powerless, hopeless, and helpless. They belittle their own position and their ability to think and their sense of responsibility, contribute to their own situation, make no effort whatsoever to get out of their position. They blame persecutors and they seek for rescuers to solve the problem for them. Some of the common phrases that people in victim roles say to themselves and others: why does this happen to me? Poor me. I cannot do anything about it. It's beyond my control. I'm not responsible for how things turned out. So now we have the rescuer, the persecutor, and the victim.
I think with the victim as well, there's a lot of blaming.
Exactly, Clive, very much so. Anything for them to not take responsibility. And so with these three, one can move around. You don't necessarily take on persecutor and you're stuck there. If someone else comes into the mix, you might land up being victim, another person rescue, another person persecutor. So it shuffles, depends. It can literally depend on the context at hand, the specific situation, what it brings out in each member in that triangle. So,
and especially in all the family dynamics, you can shift between all three of them.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that's a drama triangle. And I hope, having given a brief overview of it, that some of you are able to say, yes, that is a bit of me. Yes, I do tend to fall into that position. My loved one falls into that position. Because our transactional analysis, like I said at the beginning, it requires us to be aware of how we think, feel, and behave in order to create change. So the next thing, Clive, I don't know if you have anything else to add on the drama triangle before I move on.
I think that the drama triangle often shows us how we behaved with an active addict. So even a loved one would get into the drama triangle in trying to solve things with the rescuer, enabling, hiding, keeping secrets, the persecutor, dictatorial, strict, stubborn, also blaming, as well. And then the victim, often the addict in it's not me, it's not my fault, etc., etc. But I think that what's so important is this is how we need to often step back and say, am I in that drama triangle? Or am I going to go into an empowerment triangle? Because we can hook in so quickly, Skye, back into that drama triangle.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got anything to say there.
No, just in full agreement with you. Yeah, and just like I mentioned, that awareness that you can move away from the drama triangle into the empowerment triangle. Okay, next slide, please, Kate. Okay, so yeah, now we're going to start breaking out of the drama triangle. It takes acceptance and willingness. So accepting which roles you take on and a willingness to change it. Like Clive and I have mentioned, learning to recognize patterns in drama triangle, set boundaries, and to consciously withdraw, not to isolate, but exactly what you said now, Clive, to withdraw a bit, take that moment, and then switch to the empowerment triangle.
And I think what's so important there, because what happens is the victim wants to find that crack in the enabler to help them. And it's for that enabler to have, those boundaries that are they not going to hook into enabling. The same thing as the persecutors not going to hook into screaming, shouting, and breaking the person down. It's to be able to say, wow, when I step out, it's just to actually step out and look at what's actually going on in the dynamics of the communication.
Yeah, Thank you for that. Okay, so the empowerment triangle. The rescuer becomes the coach, the victim becomes the creator, and the persecutor becomes the challenger.
And I think this is so important, Skye, is how that enabler literally to the coach, the persecutor to the challenger, and the victim to the creator. You know, it's something to really keep in mind and have it in the back of your mind all the time to say, well, what am I? Am I being the rescuer? Am I being the coach? If you're am I being the challenger versus the persecutor? And even the victim, am I being the creator, taking responsibility and owning it, or am I still blaming?
Yeah. That sums it up really nicely, Clive. Okay, next slide, please. So the creator focus on outcomes rather than problems, which, as you've seen, is what the victim does. They focus on problems rather than outcomes. They get clarity over the outcomes they're trying to create in lives. They take responsibility for initiating actions to achieve those desired outcomes instead of waiting for someone to come about and change their situation for them. And then there are 3 core beliefs. And I love the core beliefs for each of them, because identify as a victim and now you want to go into creator role. These are 3 core beliefs you can tell yourself in the morning, you know, something to affirm yourself and to get into, yes, I'd rather play the creator instead of the victim. So the 3 core beliefs of the creators: I'm sufficient, whole, and complete. I'm responsible, choosing my responses to life. I can focus on learning and improving even when faced with struggles. So I find those all quite powerful, actually.
I think what's so important from both the going back and looking, you can empower the victim to become the creator instead of enabling them. You can empower from both angles, from the persecutor and from the rescuer. If you're able to step out and say, well, how do you think you could solve it? What do you think you could do?
Yeah, no, it's so nice how when even just one person in the drama triangle shifts into the empowerment triangle, they can create that change within it.
Definitely.
Okay, the challenger. So from the persecutor to the challenger. Challenge assumptions and status quo. Focus on growth and development rather than devaluing others. Holds creators accountable for taking actions and making progress. They lift people up instead of criticizing or blaming. So it's what Clive was saying. This is exactly how it links to helping a victim become a creator. Three of their core beliefs. Life is about learning and growth. Given that life is ever changing, I rest in the confidence and conviction of my values. I tell the truth about current reality without blame or judgment. So that also touches on taking responsibility.
I think
sorry, Clive?
Yeah, and I think as the persecutor, often in that, in the persecutor, often in that drama triangle, it's like the persecutor would hit the victim and say, I told you so, you know, and I think that just crumbles, where if you took it and you said, so what have you learned from this? You know, that's where you start to build them up.
Yeah. And then last, we've got the coach. Rescue with enabler to the coach. Compassionate and believing creators, but aren't overbearing. You know, they aren't trying to fix the whole situation. They believe in the creator. They empower creators by helping them develop goals and action plan through inquiry. So through guidance, nothing overt, not just providing solutions. They support individuals to create their own solutions. And their 3 core beliefs: I have faith in the wisdom that lies within. I trust the discovery process. And I believe in leaving the power with others as they clarify what they want. So I think with the coach, I think that it's difficult because all of them require balance.
And I think that's so. They do, and it takes awareness. So it takes like a conscious shift, because when we're in that drama triangle, we're unconscious to our behaviors. Going into the empowerment triangle actually takes us into a conscious state of, how am I behaving? How am I communicating? And am I being part of the solution or part of the problem?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just, yeah, balance with all these things, really. Yeah, I think that's everything. Clive, or I'm not sure if you want to jump on with anything. I think it covered it, and I really hope that all in attendance are able to relate to one or two of these different positions that you can fall into with communicating, and especially with your addicted loved one. How can you help yourself get out of that drama triangle, and how can you maybe assist others join you in the empowerment triangle?
And I think that what's so important, Skye, is if you go back to those first slides that we had on, it's, we were looking at the different from adult to child, child to adult, and then what we ideally wanting is the adult to adult communication, okay? And I often say, how do we talk to ourselves? Are we actually having an adult to adult conversation in our own heads? Because sometimes we, the adult, berating that inner child of us, okay? Or the child to the adult, I can't do this, the victim. And I often say the most important words you will hear are the ones you tell yourself. So it's often, how am I communicating with me? Am I on an adult to adult solution-orientated basis with myself?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, Clive, and so important, because what we internalize, we can take out, so whatever's going on inside, we can put that energy out. And if we aren't having healthy communications with ourselves, how are we to have healthy communications with others?
And I think that's so important, because what happens in all three of the drama triangles, when they step out of it, there's a lot of blame on self, self-criticism, demands on self from all three, from the enabler, the persecutor, and the victim. I shouldn't have behaved like that. Could have been easier. Or I shouldn't have given in. Or why did I blame so much from the victim? And that's where we can step out. And often what we say, these are things that are taught. We might hook into a drama triangle, and we can actually step out and say, oh, sorry, I was enabling there. Sorry, I was persecuting and being hard. And then we go back into the empowerment triangle.